It has been a hot minute since we've had a commander released or even shown in Rise of Kingdoms, and today, Lilith has revealed the 2 new infantry commanders coming to the game, but I'm going to be going over mainly the open field commander, Bai Qi. We're going to look at his skills, I'm going to go over whether or not I think they're good, I'm going to break them down, try and explain what I think they're going to do, and then we're going to look at some of his possible commander pairings. Which commanders will he be better than? Which commanders do I think he's going to be best paired with? Do I think he's going to be meta? Do I think you should invest in him? And finally, I'll try and guess about when he's going to release. So if you're interested in Bai Qi as an open field commander, you want to know his skills, you want a skill breakdown, you want to see his best pairings, you want to stick around until the end of the video. So this is Bai Qi. He's an infantry versatility smite commander. Already we know he's an open field commander. And he is, I'm assuming, going to be a Chinese commander. So he's the next infantry open field commander. And we'll just start off by going over his active skill. He deals smite damage up to 5 enemy troops in a fan-shaped area. That's already insane. I don't think Liu Che does 5. I'm pretty sure Liu Che is 3. I will just quickly double check that. I was mistaken. Liu Che is 5 targets. However, we can see that Bai Qi is more damage factor. On top of this, dealing 5 target smite damage is already insane. Like, Liu Che is meta because of how much damage he does. And the fact that we're dealing even more 5 target damage really does make Bai Qi an even stronger commander. Obviously, every single additional target will reduce the damage by 15%. And on top of this, each target has a 30% chance to take 15% extra damage. Now, outside of the DPS on this skill, seems pretty underwhelming. The 15% extra damage, from what I can tell, isn't all damage. It's just 15% extra active skill damage because there is no cooldown. So, for example, if it was all damage, you would kind of expect to see each target has a 30% chance to take 15% extra damage for 3 seconds. This just says 15% extra damage, so I assume it is just the active skill. Now, even though it is a kind of lackluster skill in terms of there's no debuffs, the damage is certainly going to make up for it. It's going to be quite meta in terms of damage factor level, and the fact that it is quite literally better than Liu Che and better than Zhu Lang. So the fact that he's doing this much instant damage on his active skill is very nice, and it's going to make him quite meta. His second skill here, this commander's infantry units gain 20% march speed, 10% attack, 10% health, 40% attack. Perfectly fine. Second skill, 20% march speed, good for infantry, 10% health, good for infantry, 40% attack. Pretty up to date with how much attack we would expect. So second skill, perfectly fine. I don't see any issues with it. It is just kind of a stat skill. Moving on to his third skill here, if this commander's troop is attacking a troop on the map, their troop is going to gain 10 stacks of Malice whenever he uses an active skill. So we're going to gain this Malice effect, you're going to gain 10 stacks of it whenever you use an active skill. It doesn't seem like it expires unless you most likely leave combat. So it seems like this stack, these Malice stacks will stay permanently until you leave combat. The next thing to note is if the stacks of Malice are higher than the target's percentage of units remaining, Bai Qi is going to spend 10 stacks of the Malice to deal smite damage to the target, damage factor 300. He'll also gain a 10% bonus to severe wounds inflicted, and a 20% bonus to rage recovery speed for 1 second with a cooldown of 1 second. So really what this means is, as you build up more stacks of Malice, you're going to be able to eventually become higher than the number of sev wounds or the number of units that your opponents have remaining. So for example, let's say you're fighting a march, and they've got 80% units remaining, and you've got 50 stacks of Malice. Your next active skill, they've got, let's say, 30% units remaining, and you've still got 50 stacks of Malice. Bai Qi is going to use 10 stacks of Malice. He's going to deal 300 smite damage to the target, single target I assume, and he's going to do 10% extra sev wounds and a 20% rage recovery bonus, so about 20 to 40 rage for a second. He's then going to trigger it again because you're way above your opponent's max HP, and that means because you still have more Malice than the number of your opponent's troops, you're going to deal an additional 300 damage factor, you're going to get that 10% bonus to sev wounds inflicted, and you're going to gain another 20% bonus to rage recovery speed, and it's going to keep doing that until you're at a lower amount of Malice, than your opponent's remaining troops. So if the march is now at 30% and you've got 20% Malice, you'll need to build up more stacks of Malice to use that skill again. Really, it simply means, even though this is quite complicated, as you build up Malice and your opponent's troop number gets lower, once you have more Malice stacks than the number of troops that your opponents have, you're going to deal damage to them with the Malice stacks. Direct damage, it seems like it is smite damage, and also you're going to gain 10% sev wound bonus. I don't really know what that means, and a 20% bonus to rage recovery. The reason I don't know what a 10% bonus to sev wounds inflicted is, I've never ever seen that on a commander before. Does it mean quite literally you're going to make them take 10% more sev wounds and get 10% less slightly wounded units? Possibly. Or does it mean something else? Now, I don't know. I don't think there's another commander in the game that does this. It seems to be quite specific to Bai Qi. Now, we are looking at this third skill. You can kind of tell it's quite difficult to build up Malice. But when we move on to the fourth skill here, he's obviously, just straight off the bat, going to deal 10% more normal damage. And when attacking a field troop, he's going to gain 10 stacks of Malice upon entering combat, and 10 stacks of Malice for every 10% of units he loses. So it seems like Bai Qi can build up quite a bit of Malice. Really, within the first 10 turns, you'll probably have around 30 stacks of Malice if you lose about 10% units. And it seems that you can probably build up a ton of Malice in a massive 1v1 duel. So if you're dueling 1v1, Malice is probably going to be quite easy to build up, and it's going to be quite nice. On top of this, Bai Qi is going to get up to a 5% bonus of smite damage, up to 30% for every 10% units he loses. So if you're at, I think it's 40% total units remaining, you're going to be able to deal up to 30% more smite damage, and it seems like there's no cooldown on this. So once you get down to 40% units remaining, you're dealing up to 30% more smite damage, and that's quite a sizable chunk, considering that Bai Qi does have an active skill that is really good and already has a lot of smite damage. So when we look at it, it seems like it's going to be quite a powerful mixture as his troop number goes lower. You're going to gain more Malice, therefore you're going to deal more damage, and you're going to make your opponents take more save wounds, and then you're going to deal even more smite damage as you lose even more units. His expertise also makes him even stronger whenever he loses units. If this commander's troop is on the map, after severely wounding 400,000 enemy units, he's going to gain a 5% bonus to normal damage dealt. Now, this is going to be really difficult to do in most open field situations, unless you're driving yourself into the ground, or if you're a whale, but generally 400,000 7 wounds with one march, you have to trade pretty good to do that, unless you already have 400,000 or 500,000 units in that march. But the more interesting part of this expertise, whenever Bai Qi is reduced to 50% units remaining, he's going to deal 60% more all damage and take 30% less all damage for the next 6 seconds. That is ridiculous. 60% all damage, and taking 30% less is absurd as well. It is definitely quite powerful. Added with this, if he gets reduced to 15% units remaining, he's going to deal 100% more all damage and take 50% less all damage for the next 6 seconds. Essentially, you're doubling his damage factor there, and you're going to be taking almost half damage, which is ridiculous. Now, obviously, there's diminishing returns on stats, so it's not exactly half and not exactly double, but that being said, it is a very nice thing. This effect can only trigger once per hour and resets if this commander enters your city, so you can't constantly be triggering this. You have to enter the city to reset it. Very similar to how Constantine's skill works, regains the massive healing, but it is still a pretty nice thing to have. And having this with the Malice stacks on the fourth skill, the fact that you gain Malice whenever you lose units, and the fact that you're going to deal more smite damage whenever you lose units, you can kind of tell that Bai Qi is going to be a really annoying commander to deal with, because as he gets weaker, he gets really strong, and there's 2 times when he gets absurdly powerful. At 15% units remaining, dealing 100% more all damage is essentially going to allow you to deal the damage of a march that's at full HP, which is insane, and it's going to allow Bai Qi, in a dying moment, to deal a lot of instant damage back to your opponents. So that's a really nice thing to have, and it is going to make your trades a lot better, especially if you get swarmed down, or if you are fighting to the death, or even if you're swarming a garrison or a rally. It means you're going to get a ton of bonus if your march does end up just getting demolished. You're going to deal a lot of damage and make it really difficult for them. On top of this, the fact that you're going to be gaining Malice whenever you go down, and also the fact that his third skill allows you to deal a ton of extra damage and inflict more 7 wounds and gain more rage, kind of means that Bai Qi is, in a way, worth driving into the ground. Fighting until he's fully dead, he is still going to trade pretty decently. Now, will he be absolutely amazing at doing that? Probably not, but fighting until he's fully destroyed seems to be quite reasonable, and the fact that his active skill is a 5-target AoE and he's going to be dealing up to 100% more all damage is pretty good, and it seems like it's going to be fairly solid on the open field. Now, in terms of Bai Qi's best pairings, generally, I think we can say he's probably going to be nice with William and nice with Liu Che. Either two of those those commanders would work nice. Leo Chair with Bai Qi is probably going to be meta for infantry. It's a double AoE, double 5 target AoE march, and it's going to have okay stats. Even though Leo Chair is not the most tanky, Bai Qi is really, really good at being a tanky and annoying march to kill. Whenever you make him weaker, he's going to deal absurd amount of damage, and he's going to be annoying to take out. The Malice effects do look quite decent, and I think it could be a fairly solid march. Another interesting pairing to point out is the possibility of Bai Qi with Philip II. The reason being, Philip II has the ability to basically double trigger Bai Qi's active skill, which means you can gain even more Malice and obviously deal the 5 target AoE twice. On top of this, Philip is a very good buffing march, and the fact that you're going to be able to have constant amounts of less all damage and more all damage dealt seems like he's going to be quite good. So he's going to be able to hold his own with Philip, and I think it could be a really powerful march. On top of this, the fact that Philip is giving defense and Bai Qi has no defense in his kit can also be a nice bit of synergy there too, and also the all damage reductions and all damage bonuses can be really nice if you do choose to use more than 2 unit types. Now, I don't think you should, because Bai Qi is in a way mainly for infantry, but if you sneak a few cavalry units in the march, you can probably still gain the majority of Bai Qi's effects. Nothing in his kit says it has to be only infantry. If you put like 5 or 10k calves, you're going to gain 15% all damage reduction, or if you just run the 1 unit, you do have that 30% all damage bonus. So really, you can get away with just running Philip with Bai Qi, and you're going to be in a really good position if, for example, you want to keep a march like a Leo Chair with an Alex, because that is a really good march at the moment. So maybe you've got Alex expertise and you've got Leo Chair expertise, and you don't really want to waste the Alex, so you can split off and make 2 marches. Philip II with Bai Qi, and then Leo Chair with Alex. Or William Wallace, if you've benched him, you can do William Wallace with Bai Qi. I think it's going to be a pretty solid march, and trade overall quite decent on the field. I think Bai Qi is going to be relatively meta. He doesn't look bad. I'm more interested to see how he ends up trading. A lot of his kit is stuff we've never seen before, the way the Malice effects work, the fact that he gets really strong when he's really low on units. Is he going to be a good commander? Is he going to be a flop? I don't fully know. I'm willing to bet that he's going to be quite decent. He looks to be pretty strong. It is more of a waiting and seeing, though, once he is fully released into the game. So if you're considering investing in him, he's not like when Leo Chair released and I said go and expertise him. It is not like when Zulang released and I said just go and expertise him because this is insane. Bai Qi seems to be more of a risky commander right now. You probably want to wait, see what the testing says, see what we see about his kit, and then decide if you want to invest in him. In terms of what I think he's going to release, I think at the latest, early June would be my bet. Probably even earlier though. We could see him mid-May to late May, which is about a month from now, because we haven't really seen a infantry commander, or really any commander for that fact, that has been released recently. So I think that besides Subutai, who was revealed all the way back in January, we haven't had a lot of commanders released into the game. So I think that Bai Qi could release really, really soon and be quite a powerful, relatively meta commander that most people can get access to. So if you haven't started saving gold heads, I recommend saving them, especially if you are looking to make an infantry march, because Bai Qi could be the main meta commander for the open field, and he might have really good investment potential. So wait and see once he's fully released. I recommend starting to save gold heads right now, because he could be in the game quite soon. Other than that, if you found today's video interesting, helpful, or you just found me entertaining, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It's really, really helpful. I always love when people subscribe. It's a small thing that really helps me make videos, and I really do appreciate it. I'll also be making a video on Bai Qi in the Rise of Kingdoms tester, if he does show up there, which means we get to see some early reports to see what he looks like he could be in game. The Rise of Kingdoms tester, generally quite accurate for some commanders, so once he's fully in there, I'll definitely make a video on that, and you wouldn't want to miss it. Other than that, I just want to say I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.